Building green. The U.S. announces the first national standard for zero-emission buildings. Plus, back to the drawing board, environmentalists vowed to keep fighting after a bill to manage plastic waste came up short in New York. And Spain's grave offering, as the country plots a way to resurrect green energy from some unlikely locations. Hello and welcome to EarthX News, where we focus on conservation, sustainability, and the environment. I'm Christina Thompson. Let's get into some of the biggest headlines facing our planet. The U.S. government is hoping to guide the construction industry towards more sustainable practices as it issues the first national standard for zero-emissions buildings, or ZEBs. The new definition, recently announced by the White House National Climate Advisor, outlines that ZEBs should be energy efficient, produce no on-site greenhouse gas emissions, and be powered entirely by clean energy, either on-site or off-site. Federal officials say the definition is applicable to both new construction projects and existing buildings undergoing adaptive reuse or renovations. The policy, which was developed jointly by the Department of Energy and the Environmental Protection Agency, is not a rule, and the ZEB definition has no regulatory impact for either public or private buildings, according to officials. Representatives from the DOE and EPA announced the plan to come up with a working definition back in September as part of a DOE blueprint to reduce U.S. building emissions by 65% over the next 11 years and 90% by 2050. The U.S.'s new tariffs on Chinese exports could hamper e-bike sales. In May, the Biden administration slapped new tariffs on a range of Chinese goods, including a 100% levy on electric vehicles. Most of the EVs sold in the U.S. won't be affected, as very few EV cars come here from China. Still, the tariffs reflect a tense trade war between the two countries. The U.S. is worried that China will soon infiltrate the American market with cheap electric cars. Inadvertently, electric bikes are being caught up in the crossfire. E-bike batteries will be subject to new 25% tariffs starting in 2026, a jump from the 7.5% tax. Prices for these bikes may spike by 2026, with e-bikes struggling to take off widely in the U.S. Many environmentalists worry the proposed tariffs will ultimately dissuade potential buyers from switching to the environmentally friendly e-bikes. A high-profile single-use plastic waste management bill stalls in the New York State legislature due to conflicting priorities from stakeholders and opposition groups. Sarah Williamson has that story.
Another year, another failure to pass. New York's EPR packaging bill gaining last-minute momentum, but didn't quite make it over the finish line. The Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act, sponsored by State Senator Pete Harkham, did pass the state Senate. However, the state assembly failed to vote in time. Aiming to fund state recycling efforts and ban certain chemicals in packaging, the high-profile bill is heavily debated.
And this is a balanced bill. This bill addresses the concerns of industry, it addresses the concerns of public health, and it addresses the concerns of our environment.
Senator Harkham says New York City could save $150 million per year in waste and recycling costs, and other parts of the state could save $100 million. The proposed legislation calls for packaging producers to join a packaging reduction organization. Fees from the program would fund state recycling infrastructure and help improve collection, reuse, and other recycling-related efforts. Had the bill passed, New York would have been the 6th state to adopt EPR for packaging. Now, Maine was the first in 2021, then Oregon. In 2022, Colorado and California followed suit. This year, Minnesota. Perhaps New York in 2025? Well, only time will tell. For EarthX, I'm Sarah Williamson.
Sarah Williamson, thank you. New York's power grid operator issues a warning about the reliability of the state's power system. In a recent report, the New York Independent System Operator found the state's electric grid will face supply shortfalls if the rate of retiring power plants fired by fossil fuels continues to outpace the addition of clean, new energy supply, especially while energy demands continue to rise. They also reported that 5 years into New York's 16-year plan to have a 100% clean energy on its grid, the state lost more than 5,000 megawatts of fossil fuel-fired power while only gaining roughly 2,200 megawatts of clean energy sources, such as solar and wind. In the next 2 years, New York has at least 10 very large power load projects coming online, including the Micron semiconductor plant in the Syracuse area. This new manufacturing facility will require 480 megawatts of capacity, equivalent to the power needs of about 400,000 homes. The grid operator said more spending on transmission and other elements of the state's electrical network and streamlining the regulatory process to build infrastructure will be part of what is needed to avoid blackouts and rising power costs over the next decade. Maryland's governor is taking steps to help the environment through a series of climate commitments. Governor Wes Moore just signed a wide-ranging executive order seeking to reduce pollution. The order directs the Maryland Department of the Environment and other agencies within the state to develop climate initiatives, such as a zero-emission heating equipment standard to decrease pollutants and improve ambient air quality inside homes. Governor Moore wants the state to achieve 100% clean energy by 2035 and directed the Maryland Department of Transportation to undertake several measures to promote clean transportation. A team from the company Premier Resource Management in California's Central Valley discovered that it could use abandoned oil wells to store solar power, potentially offering enough power for 300,000 homes. Renewable energy can be stored as heat in underground reservoirs and then used to generate electricity when the grid needs a boost. It's commonly referred as geological thermal energy storage. The process can cheaply store renewable energy for more than a month. The system will use mirrors to concentrate sunlight and heat up liquid, bringing the temperature to 700 degrees Fahrenheit. Then brackish water inside the depleted oil well will be pumped up, heated through a heat exchanger, and sent back underground. An added bonus, this process actually helps clean the brackish water that has been sitting inside the wells. The path to net zero by 2050 is going to take a lot of cash. According to a recent Bloomberg New Energy Finance report, it will cost $215 trillion to achieve zero emissions within the next 26 years, meaning governments and companies will have to spend an extra $34 trillion or 19% more than original estimates on the clean energy transition. Earlier this year, the BNEF's report said global investment in the low-carbon energy transition surged 17% to $1.8 trillion in 2023. In an effort to break down the numbers, the BNEF split the data between two scenarios. The net zero scenario, which shows the increased costs associated with going green, and the economic transition scenario, which are the estimates Bloomberg compiled in previous research. When comparing the numbers, spending increases can be seen in several areas, including EV sales, the power grid, and renewables. Carbon capture technologies will also require nearly $7 trillion worth of investment. When it comes to spending on fossil fuels, in a net zero scenario, the report suggests hundreds of billions of dollars in investments will be needed each year until 2050. Turning to international news, in a move similar to the U.S., the European Union has announced additional tariffs on electric vehicles imported from China. Shelby Wilder reports.
After a lengthy investigation process, the European Union announced this month that it would impose additional tariffs on electric vehicles imported from China by July. The EU cited the Chinese government's unfair support for its companies, which undercut European car makers, as the reason for the ruling. This decision by the EU is a significant setback for the Chinese government, which had lobbied vigorously against the tariffs. Chinese electric vehicle producers now face additional tariffs ranging from around 17% to 38%, on top of the existing 10% duty already imposed by the EU. Adam Dennett, Secretary General of the EU Chamber of Commerce in China, commented.
It's a matter of ensuring sustainable trade. Like I said earlier, the EU's approach is to ensure a level playing field. And I think European industry fully recognizes that it needs to be competitive. It needs to up its game as well. And so there's a fine line between, what the EU Commission sees as unfair subsidization and support and the issue of competitiveness.
Despite Beijing's dissatisfaction, analysts believe that it is unlikely for the situation to escalate into a full-blown trade war with the European Union, its second-largest trading partner, especially given the economic pressures China faces domestically. However, as the EU takes decisive steps to protect its interests, Beijing responded by asserting it would take all necessary measures to firmly safeguard its legitimate rights and interests as well. For EarthX, I'm Shelby Wilder.
Shelby Wilder, thank you. China has just completed what it believes to be the world's largest solar power plant. According to the state-owned company that runs the solar farm, the facility has an output of 3.5 gigawatts and will generate about 6.09 billion kilowatt hours of electricity each year. That would be enough to power the country of Papua New Guinea for a year, or just over 2 million EVs annually. One Spanish city is embarking on a new mission to install thousands of new solar panels exclusively in graveyards located around the city. Dubbed RIP, or Requiem in Power, the plan laid out by Valencia's city government calls for the installation of more than 6,000 solar panels, with the energy being used to power municipal buildings and vulnerable households. So far, 810 panels have been laid out across 3 local cemeteries, which will all eventually be linked to create the largest urban solar farm in the country. It's all part of the wider Valencia 2030 Green Mission, where the city aims to generate 27% of its energy via renewable sources. Similar solar-generating graveyards are also being considered in other parts of Europe, with the French town of Saint Joachim contemplating a similar solar canopy project. Coming up, a mechanism aimed at helping dairy farms reduce their emissions may have some unintended side effects. Stay tuned, that story is just ahead on EarthX News. Electric vehicle charging stations are becoming a new target for criminals, looking to strip them down for their valuable copper components. It's a brazen crime, which can often shut down entire charging stations, and the number of thefts seems to be on the rise. Both Tesla superchargers and Electrify America have reported substantial upticks in charger theft and vandalism, with Electrify America opting to install more security cameras across their hardest-hit locations. Superchargers in Seattle, Oakland, and Houston have reportedly been hit the hardest, with more thefts being reported across other states like Oregon, Illinois, and Pennsylvania. Law enforcement agencies are also warning the Recycled Materials Association to be on the lookout for the stolen copper, as the value of the metal reaches record highs worldwide. A new global consumer survey found that more than 40% of U.S. electric vehicle owners aren't likely to buy one again, instead saying they'd rather go back to a gas car. Conducted by McKinsey & Co., the survey found those in favor of ditching electric cars cited high costs of ownership and challenges associated with charging the cars across long distances. Charging concerns were a consistent factor against electric vehicle adoption across all questions, with the survey showing only 9% of respondents felt the current level of public charging stations is sufficient for their needs. 21% of global respondents also say they'll never consider switching from a gas car to an electric vehicle. Those respondents also heavily citing issues with vehicle charging. Bill Gates is pouring billions of dollars into a clean energy project in Wyoming. Microsoft's co-founder and his energy company, TerraPower, recently broke ground on a new generation nuclear power plant in the state. Gates says what sets this facility apart is the reactor. The apparatus at the new facility will use liquid sodium as a coolant rather than water, and includes molten salt that can store heat to boost its output, which the company says could make nuclear power cheaper, safer, and more efficient. This type of reactor is meant to be smaller, cheaper, and take less time to build than the giant hulking reactors of old. PacifiCorp, a primary provider of electricity in the West, plans to purchase electricity from TerraPower's first reactor and has expressed interest in additional reactors after that. Gates says TerraPower's plant is on track to start producing power by 2030. A device meant to help dairy farms reduce their methane gases is raising concerns it could make pollution worse. Caleb Park reports.
California's solution to pollution could be causing more pollution. Home to about 1.7 million cows, Californians are concerned about methane production as the country's leading dairy producer.
Yeah, this is Wickstrom Jersey Farms. We milk about 2,500 cows here.
A growing number of dairy farms are using methane digesters, a device that breaks down organic waste, in this case cow manure and urine, using bacteria to produce methane, which can be collected and converted into biofuels for vehicles.
But while it's in there, the plastic cover is capturing all the methane that manure liquid emits. So instead of going into the atmosphere, it's captured and sent in a pipeline about 20 miles to their ethanol plant.
About 20 of these methane digesters have been installed in the state, and more are on the way.
Companies like ourselves have come in, worked with the dairymen, resolved their methane mitigation issues, and then also provided them with a revenue stream.
It's seen as a renewable energy source, but some critics say it's worse for the environment, especially for individuals who have to breathe in the air pollution.
This isn't like a small mom and pop farm. This is thousands of cows that are living next to people. A cow is producing waste, and we are incentivizing this waste to be produced next to poor communities.
Residents like Beverly Whitfield attribute allergies and other breathing issues to the pollution from the cows.
That we don't need any more cows here. Our town is not big enough for no more cows. We got enough cows here, and they pooping and everything else, and we're smelling the poop and all that.
Air pollution researchers say that methane digesters are a net positive, despite concerns from the local community. For EarthX, I'm Caleb Park.
Caleb Park, thank you. New electrolysis cells make hydrogen production cheaper and more sustainable. Scientists say the cost of manufacturing green hydrogen can be reduced by up to 5%, bringing widespread use of the fuel source within reach. Researchers have been studying a chemical process called electrolysis to try and advance sustainable energy solutions. And scientists at the Technical University of Denmark are taking it to the next level, testing a new type of ceramic electrolysis cells with fuel electrodes. Their goal is to convert green electricity from wind turbines and solar cells into sustainable fuels like hydrogen, methanol, and ammonia. Their research shows these fuel electrodes maintain their performance even after 1,000 hours of testing, showing only slight degradation under high current draws. The scientists think this could reduce the frequency of replacements and repairs, leading to lower material and maintenance costs. Coming up, trillions of cicadas are now buzzing in the skies across several states in the Midwest and southern U.S. Stay tuned. We'll have more on this natural phenomenon when EarthX News returns. The great cicada emergence of 2024 is now underway across several states. You may recall earlier in the year we reported 2 groups of the insect would simultaneously emerge in a rare event that hasn't been seen in the U.S. since Thomas Jefferson was president. Well, now the bugs have started to appear, and scientists are working hard to learn all they can about the insects during this once-in-a-lifetime event. Leonardo Feldman reports.
If you live in certain places in the U.S., like Illinois, you're familiar with that sound. That noise is from cicadas who have emerged this year in the American South and Midwest.
They are part of this ecosystem, and this ecosystem kind of cannot function without them. It's over millennia, it's been built up to function with them.
Some may find their emergence a nuisance, but they're actually essential for the soil.
They are fertilizing the soil. They're providing nutrients to other animals, to other plants, and all of these things are all coming from these cicadas.
Cicadas are very loud. In fact, there were places in Illinois that the decibel level hit 101. That's louder than a lawnmower. It is worth noting an emergence of this magnitude has reportedly not been seen in more than 200 years, since 1803.
Everything, is intertwined so deeply that we may not realize what role they play, but they are playing an extremely important role in this forest and even in our lives.
Next time you hear these creatures buzz, remember they're here for a reason. For EarthX, I'm Leonardo Feldman.
Leonardo Feldman, thank you. A rare white buffalo has been sighted at Yellowstone National Park, fulfilling a tribal prophecy held by the local Lakota tribe. The ancient legend describes a savior figure known as the White Buffalo Woman, who helped teach the Lakota peoples to hunt buffalo around 2,000 years ago. Lakota legend adds that the woman will return to them in times of hardship, taking the form of a white buffalo calf. These animals are incredibly rare, with few recorded examples across American history. So a potential sighting has people flocking to the national park.
I understand culturally how important this is for the Native Americans, and it would just be something special to be able to see.
Park officials have yet to confirm the birth of the white buffalo among the wild herds of Yellowstone, and have no records of one being born in the park across its 132-year history. Lakota spiritual leader Arvol Looking Horse says this sacred calf presents both a blessing and a warning, and says more must be done to preserve the earth and its animals. And before we leave you, a family of one of the world's most endangered primates arrives at England's Chester Zoo. Officials announced a family of 4 Rollaway monkeys will now call the facility in northern England home. The family of 4 includes Mom, Messiah, and Dad, Grizu, along with 2 young sons, Anam and Ilu. Staffers at the wildlife facility described the moment the rare monkeys arrived as incredibly special, because there are just a few hundred of these monkeys remaining on the planet. According to Chester Zoo's director of animal and plants, the monkeys are on the brink of extinction due to habitat loss and poaching in parts of West Africa. The zoo said the family will be part of an international conservation breeding program to safeguard their species from extinction. That's it for this edition of EarthX News. Please join us again next week. I'm Christina Thompson.